let's talk about the power of the personal story. I told you my story, and the reason that I told you is because I wanted to build empathy with you, and that's what you will do. Now, I have found, correct me if I'm wrong, but I have found that people who live on one side of their brain, like folks who spend a lot of time in labs and with numbers and in front of computers and doing data research and well, oh, you guys, that sometimes it is difficult for you to open up your hearts and be vulnerable in front of a group of people. Will you please do it? When you walk out of here today, will you please do it? Because if you don't, it's going to be hard to listen to you. Nobody cares about statistics unless they're couched in a story or couched in your personal experience. So the power of the personal story is not just your story, it's also using anecdotes in the way that you talk with people and the way you teach people and the way you make them understand what's going on. Your story is what makes you the PowerPoint. I usually don't use PowerPoint, but I did this time. So I think it's kind of nice for you as long as I'm not turning around and looking at it, and as long as I can ensure that you are listening to me, and I can see that you're listening to me. You're looking at me, which is great, but some people, have you ever been to a presentation where the PowerPoint takes over? Have you ever given a presentation where the PowerPoint takes over? Oh, good. Well, after today, I hope that you won't do that. Your stories, how you feel about what you do, makes you the PowerPoint. If you are vulnerable, willing to share those tender moments within your experience, makes you the PowerPoint. Also, sharing your story means you have to think about it. Which story is going to be most effective? Which anecdote are you going to tell at what point in your presentation so that you can underscore what's happening? And again, when it comes to the PowerPoint, this is just used to underscore what I'm talking about. Okay? This is not, I'm the message. This is just an exclamation point. Brian Greene, some of you said you knew, and he is a fabulous scientist who's an incredible storyteller. And I saw him recently speak, and so I brought just a little clip in here today so that you could watch him in action. And what I'd like you to do is write down just 1 or 2 things that you hear in this 2-minute clip that you think make him so effective. He is right now, and this is taken out of context, so if you've never heard of string theory before, you're going to be, it's going to be really interesting. I would love to know if you even understand what he's talking about. But he starts in a discussion about Einstein and the theory of relativity, and he then goes on to the unified theory, which is what string theory is. And right now, he's going to try to explain to you what string theory is. Write down 1 or 2 things that he does very well that make him a very good communicator.
Sparkling new form.
Here he
goes. Let me just tell you how that goes. Superstring theory, what is it? Well, it's a theory that tries to answer the question, what are the basic, fundamental, indivisible, uncuttable constituents making up everything in the world around us? The idea is like this. So imagine we look at a familiar object, just a candle and a holder, and imagine that we want to figure out what it is made of. So we go on a journey deep inside the object and examine the constituents. So deep inside, we all know you go sufficiently far down, you have atoms. We also all know that atoms are not the end of the story. They have little electrons that swarm around a central nucleus with neutrons and protons. Even the neutrons and protons have smaller particles inside of them, known as quarks. That is where conventional ideas stop. Here is the new idea of string theory. Deep inside any of these particles, there is something else. The something else is this dancing filament of energy. It looks like a vibrating string. That's where the idea of string theory comes from. And just like the vibrating strings that you just saw on a cello can vibrate in different patterns, these can also vibrate in different patterns. They don't produce different musical notes, rather they produce the different particles making up the world around us. So if these ideas are correct, this is what the ultra-microscopic landscape of the universe looks like. It's built up of a huge number of these little tiny filaments of vibrating energy, vibrating in different frequencies. The different frequencies produce the different particles. The different particles are responsible for all the richness in the world around us. And there you see unification, because matter particles, electrons and quarks, radiation particles, photons, gravitons, are all built up from one entity. So matter and the forces of nature all are put together under the rubric of vibrating strings, and that's what we mean by a unified theory. And here is the catch. When you study the mathematics of string theory, you find that it doesn't work in a universe that just has 3 dimensions of space. It doesn't work in a universe with 4 dimensions of space, nor 5, nor 6. Finally, you can study the equations and show that it works only in a universe that has 10 dimensions of space and 1 dimension of time. Leads us right back to this idea of Kaluza and Klein that our world, when appropriately described, has more dimensions than the ones that we see.
Okay, do you understand string theory? Kind of, right? I mean, out of context, out of a 25-minute speech, in 2 minutes, he told you what it was. All right, what did he do right? Yep.
Conveyed his passion.
Oh, he is such a passionate speaker, yes. He's excited, isn't he? He wasn't reading off a PowerPoint. Oh my gosh. That's it. I'm putting that into my presentation because that's a really good idea. He really just spoke to people, didn't he? That's great. Okay.
He used visuals, animations, and started with the really.
You looked at that candlestick. You were not afraid of that slide, were you? You're like, oh, I know, candlestick. Okay.
He used really simple language.
Very.
Basic, no jargon,
No jargon. Very simple language. Right. Yep. Jen, did you have what? Okay, go ahead.
Use the analogy of the cello string.
Analogies, anecdotes. Oh, they're such yummy things. Did you have your hand up? No, just fixing your hair? Would you fix mine? Because I'm pretty sure I need it. Okay. When I saw him speak at Western Washington University as part of the Distinguished Lecture Series, oh my gosh, I've got to tell you, I was sitting next to him, I was talking with him, I was very excited to hear him. He got up there, and 1, 2, 3, 4 different audio systems failed on him. 4. It was so embarrassing for the university, I can't begin to tell you. He didn't miss a beat. He was funny, he kept rolling with it, he was flexible, he just kept talking. He talked to us like, oh, you've been in this position before, haven't you? I mean, what do you do here? Okay, let's play ball. I mean, he was funny. He just did not let it get to him. I think you guys actually hit everything that I wanted to talk about in terms of what he did. I want you to serenade your audience's imagination like Brian Greene did. Speak, don't read. Be relatable. He was very relatable. I mean, when he was down there doing that, I mean, his hand gestures alone were just so exciting, weren't they, to watch? You could almost like not listen to him and just watch that. Did he paint a clear picture? Yeah. Did he have a really good IT guy, somewhere making some fabulous PowerPoint film for him? Yeah. Could you do something along those lines? Sure. You don't have to have, such high-tech stuff. I mean, you can use a candlestick and then go from there. He used an analogy, and many times during his speeches he uses anecdotes. He didn't tantalize with quotes, but it's something that I like to do because there were great minds before us, and I like to quote them. There are 6 elements to good storytelling. And I want to talk about this because we're going to break for lunch in a minute, and I want you to develop a story to tell that's based on your own experience. And then you're going to share them with the people that you're with. Elements to good storytelling are the same things that you see on your video screen, on your movie screen, and on your television screen. It's all the same thing. There's always a setting. Where is your story taking place? Describe it so I know what you're talking about. Who are the characters? What is the issue? Describe it in relatable terms, no jargon. What is happening? Oh, look, there's a fire in that building. That's the plot. Okay, that is the plot. Your backstory is what happened before the piece that you're telling to give it context and to make your story more understandable. Details, and this is where you're going to really shine. You are going to use details when you tell a story that engages somebody's nose and their fingertips and their ears and their mouth, their taste buds. You want them to be living what you're telling. Okay, you're going to describe the scene, you're going to describe the culture, you're going to describe the environment, you're going to describe, I don't care, and I'm not talking when I say culture, I don't mean the culture of the United States, I mean the culture of wherever your story is taking place. And you're going to use your enthusiasm to tell your story, okay? Get excited about your story.